Hi, welcome to Planning Preview. We're going to be reviewing the agenda for the upcoming Planning Commission meeting on August 5th, and we'd love to have you join us at the meeting. If you have some thoughts or other community input, we certainly welcome that. Today, I have Jason Bieber with me from Development Services. Hi, Jason, how are you doing?
Doing good, happy to be here.
Good. We've got a fairly brief agenda this month, typical for a summer month, a little bit less kind of ramping up at this stage, but we'll see a lot more in the fall, I would imagine. That's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah, usually, our spring and kind of our fall are our busiest times because they're getting ready for projects to start in the spring, or in the summer, and then the fall ones are getting ready to start in the spring of next year.
Right,
so
right.
This is kind of our slower months.
A little bit of a lull, but
yep.
Well, the first one we've got on our agenda is rezoning from the O Office District to the RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density District at 4800 East 41st Street. That must be just west of Harmon Park, right?
Yeah, correct. So this is kind of just east of Casey's, and then Lloyd Companies built that strip center there that has, I believe, a fitness thing. And then there's a vacant lot, and it's currently zoned office. We do have somebody that's requesting then to zone it to apartment residential and do, I think, 6-unit townhome there, which should provide that good transition from the retail strip center to this, and then there's some existing twin homes to the east there. So
sure, and then that's a nice transition to the single family that's a little bit farther yet, right?
Yep, and then this would allow, as we know, just 2 stories, similar height as twin homes and single family, so you won't get 3-4 story apartment right next to a single story twin home. So it should fit in there pretty good.
Sure, that makes sense. Well, can you just talk briefly? This is specifically low density. And I know we have a couple of categories. We have the low density and higher density. Could you describe kind of how we separate those two things, just for our audience?
Yeah, great question. We used to have under the old ordinance, it was kind of density, so you could have so many units per square foot, or it was 1 unit per 1,000 square feet for our highest density. Once Shea Places took effect, we really wanted to more focus on the size of the buildings, the height, number of units per building. So the RA1, which is our lowest density apartments, that would allow maximum 2 stories and 24 units per building. And then we have the RA2, which is kind of our medium moderate density. That would allow 3 stories and 48 units per building. And then our RA3, which is our high density apartment residential, and that allows apartments of a limited size, so you can go as tall as you want and as big as you want per building. So
okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that helps our audience know kind of, there are specific categories, and so when we talk about those numbers, we're really focusing on kind of that density per location, which also affects traffic, which is why we try to plan those near arterials and things that have really good traffic flow, right?
Correct, yep, absolutely.
Okay, looks like our second one is a rezoning from agricultural district to RS single family residential at north of 6 Mile Road and north of East 10th Street, and that must be right near Willow Run, I'm guessing.
Yeah, actually the west side of 6 Mile Road.
Okay.
So Willow Run would be on the east, but this is that Mystic Creek development, if you've seen up there. It's really built a ton of houses up there. Also in the Brandon School District, so it seems like a lot of these subdivisions have really taken off in the Brandon School District. They're just looking to add some additional land that they just annexed in. That's zoned ag, because when it comes into the city, it's zoned what it is in the county, which is ag. And then they actually had a little strip of RD2 on the bottom, which is townhomes, that they're changing that all to single family. I think they're kind of figuring that there's a lot of single family families that want to live out in the Brandon School District, and so it's just continuing to build that single family residential out there.
Yeah, very popular spot for sure. I live on the east side, and it really seems like things are growing quickly.
Yeah, that area in the next couple years with the Clint Ackerman's project to the south of this, that'll get a lot of units here.
Looks like our next one is a conditional use permit for on-sale alcohol beverage establishment within 500 feet from sensitive use. located at 1301 West 41st Street, suite number 100. That must be right near Costco, I'm guessing, right?
Yep, this is actually the 18th Amendment restaurant bar. They're looking at, they already have an existing casino on site. They're looking at adding another a tenant space for another casino to get some additional machines. They had not had a conditional use permit since 2014, and there are some sensitive land uses. They're roughly like 450 feet to the north across 41st Street, so not really impacted, but they still are within that 500 feet, so they need to get a conditional use then for that use.
Which is great that we do that. You know, we those aren't an automatic thing for a good reason. We want to make sure that we're always hearing what the neighborhood thinks, making sure the police have looked at their safety plan, all those kinds of things before we approve anything new like that, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Looks like our next item is a rezoning from C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to I1 Light Industrial at, boy, it's a weird spot, West Floyd, West Madison, and North Terry. That must be over by the CTE Academy general area, right?
Yeah, correct. So this property will front West Madison Street. Really, that area is, a lot of it actually is light industrial, but this specific spot is zoned commercial. The applicant's looking at just doing a contractor shop on there, which kind of fits in with that whole area over in that side of town. So.
Right. And that, especially when you find one of those commercial spots, somebody at one time thought, well, this might be a good spot for this type of use. We found a related use that kind of fits in the neighborhood, and so just that little bit of a tweak of zoning really makes that so it's compliant, right?
Yep, correct, yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Looks like our last one is conditional use permit to allow motor vehicle display and sales parking on a lot over 1 acre at 4725 East Arrowhead Parkway. We've heard this one before. This must be the old Shopco, right?
Yep, this is that lot that's just east of the Shopco and east of the strip center that's attached. It's a vacant lot. You know, we really actually added this condition as part of, I believe a couple of years ago, we added that in there, and that was really to try and have some other checks and balances for some of these large car lots, specifically, you know, when Billion expanded on 41st in Minnesota. We wanted the neighbors to be able to have a say in these big sea of parking, and also increase the buffer yard requirements for this. So they're required actually a level D buffer yard against single family. And this is another, Vern ID is looking to utilize this lot as kind of some storage for some of their new and used vehicles that they're going to be selling at the Shopco lot. And the lot is, I believe, 1.5 acres, so kicks it up over 1 acre, and then need a conditional use, and then they'll have to provide all those buffer yard requirements.
So this is that grassy section that's to the east of the rest of the lot, you're saying? Okay,
gotcha. And then it kind of backs up to those houses on Gordon Drive that are kind of that existing rural residential area that's right south of Arrowhead Parkway. And,
although a car lot can be a pretty nice adjacent use to even single family, just because of its relative nature with hours and things like that, right?
And this one will most likely just be for storage. So I mean, you're not going to get people coming over there. It's more of like, hey, I'm going to store a car here before I put it out on the the lot. And just to reiterate, those all have to be operable. It can't be a junkyard and stuff like that. Right. But they will have to provide that large buffer yard on the east side adjacent to those single families. So level D buffer yard would be the same as like if Walmart was next to a single family. So it's a significant landscape area.
How wide is the level D buffer yard again?
That's a 45-foot buffer yard. Now there is an existing right of way on the east side, so it'll be even farther than from that existing single family house. So, and then you've got the 6-foot berm or 6-foot fence. You've got significant landscaping, so it'll be heavily landscaped along there.
Yeah. That sounds great. Well, thank you. Please don't leave just yet. We'll be right after this break talking a little bit about the census and what that means to the city of Sioux Falls and what that means to careful planning for the community. So please stay tuned and rejoin us in just a moment. Thank you.
They're glowing beacons that light our way. Streetlights in the city of Sioux Falls illuminate our travels, brighten our roads, and keep us safe. So what do you do if you see a streetlight out or malfunctioning? The City of Sioux Falls has made it easy to report a problem in your community with the Street Light Hotline at 373-6979 or log on to siouxfalls.org. Give them as much information as you can, and crews will be out to fix the problem as soon as possible. Thank you for helping make Sioux Falls a better place to live.
Hi, and welcome back from our break. This is Sean Irvin with the Sioux Falls Planning Commission. I have here today with me Matt Tobias from Planning and Development Services.
Yep.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. I hear that there's some new information. We gave a teaser before the break about the new census and the status of what's going on there. So do we have a number?
Yes, we do actually. So with the 2020 census, we really did kind of have to modify our planning, what we were going to do with COVID. So the federal government actually came to us and said we can extend the deadline for census, which made us very happy because we want to make sure we get an adequate count. We want to make sure we get everyone counted that needs to be counted in Sioux Falls. So currently today, we're at that 71.5% for our self-response rate.
Okay.
In 2010, we were at 73.8. So with the deadline extension that we have until the end of October right now, we're confident that we can hopefully meet that 73.8 that we had in 2010 or even exceed it.
Mm-hmm. And so then there will just be some advertising and things like that to remind people to get that stuff in.
The census really did a phenomenal job, in my opinion, this year on the marketing. We saw a lot of commercials and whatnot.
Yeah, I did.
So they did a really good job with that. So we really haven't, up until today, actually, it's funny, but today you'll start seeing some census takers actually hitting the streets. Due to CDC guidelines and COVID and everything else, they were really hesitant on just releasing people to go out in the public. Mm-hmm. So we're meeting with, we have individuals in our office that are meeting with at-risk places like just downtown Sioux Falls. We're trying to get all those people counted. So the Mission, we're doing the Bishop Dudley House and stuff like that. So we're trying to get in front of as many people as we can, and that can finally start now. The CDC has kind of allowed us to, with major modifications, to go out and start making sure we can get those numbers counted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Good to know.
Yeah.
And so, with that extension, then these physical takers that walk around and talk to people, they specifically know which addresses they haven't heard from yet.
Yeah. So the census will give us. We have. The census provides us with actual numbers on the census number on the tracks, the different population tracks, so we can see percentages. So with our recent data, we can see an area of town and know what their percentage rate is. So we know that we'll have to hit that specific area. They actually can break it down as well and let us know the different populations that we need to target. Okay. So it's pretty neat, the data that they get in as far as how current it is when people take their census, and they spit that information back to us, and then we can know where we need to target our efforts at. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really important. I'll be honest to tell you that in 2010, I had no idea that the importance of the census. I knew it was important, but after going through it this time in 2020 and what it does for our city, and what our city receives back from federal funding for every person doing the census, it was kind of mind-blowing.
Oh, okay. So you said you know a little bit about some of our peer cities and how they compare with how they're doing on census versus Sioux Falls. Can you share some of that?
Yeah, so I'm happy to say that we're right on with some of our peer cities, and we're slightly ahead of a few other ones. Right now, like I said, currently today we're at 71.5% of our self-response rate. Mm-hmm. Rochester is at 74%. Lincoln, Nebraska is at 73%. And Fargo is at 64.2%. So we like to think that we're all in competition for the same amount of money, right? And it doesn't hurt for us to be a little better than some of our peer cities when it comes down to it. But as a state, the state of South Dakota ranks 22nd nationally on our self-response rate. So if you look at our little state with our population, we're 22nd in the nation, and we're actually right now, as of yesterday, we were just a little bit higher than California. Oh, okay. On our self-response rate. So that's something to be proud of. We take the census very seriously, but we just know in the marketing that went behind the census this year, they spent a lot of time and effort trying to break it down to what it actually equals for us. So one person and one person doing the census can equal almost $1,900 for federal housing programs, right? And one person doing the census can equal up to $3,600 for our highway and streets program. That can fill a lot of potholes.
Oh yeah.
Right. So those numbers, what we get back from the federal funding from that standpoint, that's where we get that information back from the census. So we have to use the census also on a planning perspective too, to see where we're at with our city and see our population rates and where we're at and kind of where we're growing. So that stuff, it all makes our jobs a little easier when we have that information.
Well, I think it even helps us, as we think about, say, the comprehensive plan. We know how long that will last because we always plan for about 30 to 40 years, plus or minus. And so as it looks like things are growing a little faster, that may mean we need to step up our thoughts about what we may have to do next year to plan for that year 30 or whatever it is, right?
I mean, this information that we get back, it lets us know that we have this a little over 3,000 people moving to our city every single year.
Okay.
And that's a lot to handle, and it's a lot to try to work on our growth. So when we're planning out for our 2040, we take this information, and if we can continue the growth that we see, it gives us a better idea of looking at like our traffic model, for instance, like where do we need to focus our efforts on in the coming years?
Right. To keep cars moving, because that is really the lifeblood of the community.
Sure is. That's one of our biggest complaints we get.
Yep, absolutely.
Is our Sioux Falls traffic and our rush minute we have every single morning. Not rush hour, it's rush minutes. So
it can be that way. So what other information do you gain from kind of that census to really start to help the city plan? We already talked about some of the planning, comprehensive plan, and some of the dollars that might be coming into the budget, things like that. What else does it affect?
It really helps us too, because there's some information in the census where it comes to income guidelines, right? So we get some, and then ethnicities too. So it really paints a good picture for what Sioux Falls is made of. And so it really takes a look at, we have, the median income is this, and then we also look at our employers and our job rates and stuff like that too. So it paints a really good picture of what really lives in our community. So then we can shift our efforts if we need to focus on, if we have a vulnerable population that lives in this particular area of the city and their income guidelines are a little lower, but then they're this race or this ethnicity. So it really helps us get a better understanding of what our community needs are at that point in time too. So we can shift some of our focus too, based on some information that we get back from the census. So,
and I imagine you even compare kind of what the census looks like against kind of overall goals that were set, 10 years ago, saying, well, this is the trend we want to see. And now that you see the trend, because that's really what this is, then you have kind of extra information to know, okay, well, this isn't quite working as well as we thought it would, so we need to kind of rethink how we're doing that, right?
Yeah, it really helps us out a lot with that. So, and then we'll be comparing the 2020 census back to our 2010 census too, and seeing and trying to map out some of those trends as well. So it's a good tool for us. Kind of thankful it only comes every 10 years because it's a lot of work. We have a couple individuals in our office that have put a lot of time, and I can't thank them enough for the time they put into it, because it's a beast, and it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of getting out in the community. We have an individual in our office who's spending time with these groups, right? He's going to church groups. He's going to multicultural centers and stuff like that, just getting the word out. So the last thing that I could say is that if you haven't done the census yet, I would highly recommend you do it, because it only helps us. It literally only helps us. When we start talking some of these dollar amounts that we get for one person doing that, it's a big help and a big lift for the city when we can get that extra funding.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Now, again, when is the final, it's been extended. When is the final deadline?
The final hard deadline is the end of October.
Okay.
Is what the census is telling us. So it's the end of October. So one thing they're going to do this year, they're going to be doing some follow-up calls starting in like September, just to make sure you got everybody in your house counted. So if you filled the census out, you may actually receive a call from them saying, hey, thanks for filling it. We appreciate that you filled it out. However, we're just going to double check and make sure we got everybody counted. So they're going to do some follow-up calls. But you'll still see people out in kind of the community. We had planned people to be out in the community early spring,
Right.
and we had a big plan for everything we were going to do and meeting with these different groups, and then COVID hit, and that kind of changed our plans. So we've had to modify a lot of things. We're working really closely, the census with the CDC, making sure that we have the right guidelines in place. And so you'll start seeing that this fall, you'll start seeing more activity with that.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
And then when the final figures are available around that, well, probably not right at the end, of October. But
It'll be like second quarter of 2021.
Okay.
Is when we'll probably start seeing some of those numbers come through.
And I'm sure we'll start seeing that in the news and
Yeah.
other things. But
Yep.
if citizens want to come down to the city center, I assume they can get a copy or
Yeah,
something
they can.
like that.
I would
if they
actually
have interest?
probably the city center. We could get you a copy of that. But everything's online this year, and it's
Okay.
made it very helpful and easy to do online. I took my survey online, so if you go in and you can just fill it out online, it's very easy. And then they have the different languages available online, everything like that. So they've really this year with the technology, they've made it kind of seamless.
Okay. So the city will probably have a link then on their website.
I would say
and
just
that
go to
might be the-
census. It's really census.gov.
Okay.
Census.gov will get you there, and you can start from there.
Okay, very good.
You bet.
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks
Yeah.
for all the great information. It was very helpful. And thank you all for joining us today. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the program, but we'd love to see you coming up at our August 5th Planning Commission meeting. We'd love to have you join us. We love to hear from neighbors. We love to hear from the community about thoughts that you think might really improve our community. That's very much at the center of what the Planning Commission is trying to do and protect. So we'd love to hear your input and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.